Iran's military command just received intelligence that changes everything they thought they knew about their defensive capabilities. For 2 decades, Tehran has been building what it believed was an impenetrable network of underground fortifications, spending billions to bury its most valuable assets deeper than any conventional weapon could reach. That confidence just evaporated. In the span of 72 hours, Iran's generals were forced to confront a reality that kept them awake at night. The weapons they thought would protect them might as well be cardboard. This was not a gradual revelation. This was a strategic shock that arrived without warning and left Iran's military leadership scrambling to reassess 2 decades of defensive doctrine. Welcome to States News. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because what we are about to break down is not just another Middle East military story. This is about how an entire nation's strategic calculus got rewritten in the time it takes to file a mission report. I am going to show you exactly what warning Iran just received and why it represents a fundamental shift in regional power dynamics. We will cover the specific intelligence that reached Tehran, the weapon systems that triggered this strategic panic, and the second-order effects rippling through Iran's Revolutionary Guard leadership right now. We are going to examine the technical capabilities that make this warning credible, the historical context that explains why Iran built its defensive strategy around underground facilities in the first place, and the geopolitical implications of what happens when a nation realizes its most expensive insurance policy just became worthless. By the end of this video, you will understand why Iran's military planners are conducting emergency meetings to figure out how to defend assets they can no longer hide, and why this development matters far beyond Iran's borders. To understand why this warning hit Tehran like a seismic shock, you need to understand Iran's strategic geography and the defensive doctrine they have spent 20 years perfecting. Iran sits at one of the most strategically important crossroads on the planet. The Persian Gulf to the south, the Caspian Sea to the north, and land borders with Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Turkmenistan. This geographic position gives Iran both opportunity and vulnerability. Control the Strait of Hormuz and you control roughly 21% of global petroleum traffic. But that same strategic value makes you a target. Iran learned hard lessons from the Gulf War. In 1991, they watched the United States and coalition forces dismantle Iraq's conventional military in 43 days. The lesson Iran drew was simple. You cannot defeat American air power in open battle. You cannot win a conventional war against F-15s, cruise missiles, and precision-guided munitions. So Iran made a strategic choice. Instead of trying to match Western conventional capabilities, they would go underground. Deep underground. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps began a massive construction program in the early 2000s. They built command centers under mountains. They buried missile production facilities beneath hundreds of feet of reinforced concrete and rock. They created underground naval bases carved into coastal cliffs. They distributed their nuclear program across dozens of sites, many of them buried so deep that intelligence analysts struggled to map them accurately. The crown jewel of this effort was the Fordo facility, built inside a mountain near Qom, protected by layers of rock that would absorb the impact of any conventional bomb in existence at the time. This was not cheap. Estimates suggest Iran spent somewhere between $15 and $25 billion on underground fortification over 2 decades. That is a staggering sum for a nation operating under severe economic sanctions. But from Tehran's perspective, it was rational insurance. Bury your most valuable assets deep enough, and they become effectively invulnerable. Your adversaries can see the mountain, they can know something is inside, but they cannot touch it. That strategic logic shaped Iranian military planning for an entire generation. Iran's defensive doctrine rests on a concept called strategic depth through concealment. Surface facilities are expendable. The real capabilities, the systems that matter, live underground where satellites cannot see them and missiles cannot reach them. This approach allowed Iran to maintain credible deterrence despite massive technological disadvantages. You might have better planes, better missiles, better intelligence, but if you cannot destroy the targets that actually matter, your superiority becomes theoretical rather than practical. This doctrine has served Iran well. Israeli airstrikes have hit surface facilities repeatedly over the years. But the deep bunkers remained untouched. The nuclear program continued. The missile production lines kept running. Iran's leadership could absorb tactical losses while protecting strategic assets. Until now, in late March 2026, according to Israeli intelligence sources who spoke with Walla News, something changed. The United States quietly informed select regional partners that it had deployed a weapons system specifically designed to defeat deep underground targets. Not damage them, not degrade them, defeat them. The weapon in question is the GBU-72 Advanced 5K Penetrator, a precision-guided bunker-busting bomb that represents a generational leap beyond anything previously available. Now here is where it gets interesting. The The GBU-72 is not some theoretical system still in development. It is operational. It is deployed. And according to sources familiar with the intelligence briefing Iran received, the United States demonstrated its effectiveness in controlled testing that left no ambiguity about its capabilities. Let me give you the technical specifications that matter. The GBU-72 weighs exactly 5,000 pounds. It uses a hardened steel casing designed to maintain structural integrity during penetration. The guidance system combines GPS with inertial navigation, allowing accuracy within 3 meters, even when targeting facilities buried under mountains where GPS signals degrade. But the real innovation is the penetration mechanism itself. Previous generation bunker busters, systems like the GBU-28 used since the Gulf War, could penetrate approximately 100 feet of earth or 20 feet of reinforced concrete. Impressive, but not sufficient for the deepest Iranian facilities. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, or MOP, pushed that capability to 200 feet of earth or 60 feet of concrete. That system required a B-2 stealth bomber to deliver it because of its 30,000-pound weight. The GBU-72 changes the equation. According to technical assessments leaked to Defense News in January, this weapon can penetrate approximately 250 feet of packed earth or 80 feet of reinforced concrete. It achieves this despite weighing 1/6 of what the MOP weighs. That means it can be carried by tactical fighters like the F-15E Strike Eagle, not just strategic bombers. That means you can deploy it in larger numbers, hit more targets simultaneously, and do it without the operational complexity of B-2 missions. Think about what that means for a moment. Facilities that Iran spent billions to bury under mountains, command centers they believed were untouchable, production lines they considered strategically secure, all of it just became targetable by conventional tactical aircraft. The insurance policy Iran bought with 20 years of construction and $25 billion just became worthless. But the warning Iran received was not just about technical specifications. It included something far more unsettling. Evidence that the United States has detailed intelligence on the locations and depths of Iran's most sensitive underground facilities. This is the second dimension of the strategic shock. According to Radio Free Europe reporting from March 28, Iranian military officials became aware that American intelligence had acquired precise geographic coordinates and depth measurements for at least 47 critical underground sites across Iran. This is not general knowledge that there are bunkers under Fordo. This is specific data, exact GPS coordinates, facility depths measured to the meter, internal layout information, and ventilation shaft locations. How did this intelligence reach Iran? Through back channels used for precisely this kind of strategic messaging. The United States did not announce this publicly. They communicated it through diplomatic intermediaries in ways designed to ensure the message reached Revolutionary Guard leadership directly. This is classic strategic signaling. We want you to know what we know. We want you to understand what we can do. We want you to make decisions based on this new reality. The geopolitical implications extend far beyond Iran's immediate military concerns. For years, Iran has used its underground facilities as a bargaining chip in nuclear negotiations. The implicit message was always, even if you do not like our nuclear program, you cannot stop it because you cannot reach it. That leverage just evaporated. European negotiators who have spent years in talks with Iran suddenly have a different dynamic. According to diplomatic sources who spoke with The Atlantic, there are quiet discussions happening right now about how this development changes the calculus for both sides. Iran knows its facilities are vulnerable. Western powers know Iran knows. That shifts the entire negotiation framework. Regional actors are recalculating as well. Saudi Arabia has watched Iran's military expansion with growing concern for decades. The knowledge that Iranian underground facilities are now targetable changes Saudi Arabia's security assessment. If conflict breaks out, those Iranian missile production facilities that threaten Saudi cities can actually be destroyed. That is a significant shift in regional power balance. Israel has been the most vocal about Iranian underground facilities. Prime Minister Netanyahu has repeatedly cited them as evidence that Iran maintains nuclear weapons ambitions despite denials. Israeli military planners have long sought ways to hold these facilities at risk. The deployment of the GBU-72 gives Israel a capability it previously lacked, assuming the United States would share or coordinate on targeting. But there is another layer to this that deserves attention. Iran's response to this warning reveals as much as the warning itself. According to intelligence assessments reported by Walla News in early April, Iranian Revolutionary Guard leadership initiated emergency protocols to review and potentially relocate critical assets from the most vulnerable sites. The problem Iran faces is that you cannot simply move a nuclear enrichment facility or a missile production line overnight. These are massive industrial installations requiring specialized infrastructure. Electricity, water, climate control, transportation access, all of it has to be in place. Moving them would take years and cost billions Iran does not have while operating under current sanctions. So Iran faces a strategic dilemma. Keep assets in place and accept they are vulnerable. Or begin expensive relocation that will take years, during which the assets are even more vulnerable because they are exposed during transit and construction. Either way, the strategic depth Iran thought it had purchased has been compromised. Now let us talk about what this warning has not accomplished, because acknowledging limitations is crucial for honest analysis. This development does not eliminate Iran's military capabilities. It does not mean Iran is defenseless. It does not prevent Iran from continuing its regional activities or supporting proxy forces across the Middle East. Iran still possesses substantial conventional military forces. The Revolutionary Guard still operates in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. Iran's ballistic missile inventory remains one of the largest in the region. The underground facilities may be vulnerable to American penetrator weapons, but that only matters if the United States actually decides to strike them. Capability and intent are different things. There is also the question of Iranian countermeasures. Military strategists in Tehran are not sitting idle. They are undoubtedly exploring ways to defeat or degrade bunker buster effectiveness. This might include deeper facilities beyond current penetration ranges, decoy facilities designed to waste American munitions, distributed storage where no single strike can eliminate critical capabilities, or active defense systems designed to intercept incoming penetrators. The technical challenge of intercepting a bunker buster mid-flight is substantial. These weapons fall at extremely high velocities with hardened casings designed to survive impacts. But that does not mean countermeasures are impossible. Iran has surprised Western intelligence before with its technical capabilities. Assuming they cannot develop effective responses would be a mistake. We should also consider alternative perspectives on what this warning means. From Tehran's viewpoint, this could be seen as evidence of American desperation rather than strength. If the United States felt confident in its ability to change Iranian behavior through economic pressure or diplomatic isolation, would it need to deploy and signal about bunker-busting weapons? Perhaps this is actually evidence that other approaches have failed. Iranian leadership might interpret this warning as confirmation that military options remain on the table, which could actually reinforce their determination to maintain nuclear program progress as insurance against regime change efforts. From this perspective, the warning could backfire by convincing Tehran that only a genuine nuclear deterrent will ensure regime survival. There is also the question of how China and Russia view this development. Both nations have deep underground military facilities of their own. Both are watching American bunker buster development closely. The deployment of the GBU-72 against Iranian facilities would provide valuable intelligence about the weapon's actual performance, intelligence that Beijing and Moscow would study intensively to develop their own countermeasures. This raises a larger strategic question. Does using these weapons against Iran compromise their effectiveness against peer competitors? If China learns precisely how the GBU-72 performs under combat conditions, they can engineer defenses that reduce its effectiveness against Chinese facilities. This is the challenge of revealing your capabilities against secondary adversaries when you may need them against primary threats later. What remains unresolved is whether the United States would actually authorize strikes using these weapons. Having capability and using it are different decisions. The political and strategic consequences of attacking Iranian underground facilities would be enormous. It would likely trigger Iranian retaliation against American forces in the region, attacks on Gulf shipping, and activation of proxy forces across the Middle East. The question is whether American leadership would accept those costs, even if the military capability exists. So where does this leave us? Iran's military leadership has received a warning that fundamentally challenges 2 decades of strategic planning. The defensive doctrine they built around underground concealment has been compromised by technical developments that allow adversaries to reach facilities previously considered untouchable. The intelligence suggesting that the United States knows precisely where these facilities are located adds another dimension to the strategic shock. The regional implications are substantial. Iran's leverage in nuclear negotiations has diminished. Regional adversaries now see Iranian capabilities as more vulnerable than before. Alliance structures are shifting as nations reassess the balance of power, but the warning alone does not determine outcomes. Iran still possesses significant military capabilities and strategic options. How Tehran responds to this challenge will shape Middle East security dynamics for years to come. What we are watching is the intersection of technical military capability, strategic intelligence, and diplomatic signaling. The United States has demonstrated it can reach targets Iran thought were safe. Iran now must decide how to respond to that reality. Do they accelerate their nuclear program before facilities become vulnerable? Do they seek diplomatic accommodation? Do they double down on proxy warfare as compensation for reduced strategic depth? Each choice carries risks and costs. For viewers trying to understand what comes next, watch for several indicators. Iranian construction activity at new or expanded underground sites would suggest they are trying to go deeper beyond current weapon ranges. Diplomatic overtures toward the United States or European powers might indicate Tehran is reassessing its position. Increased Iranian activity through proxy forces could signal they are compensating for reduced strategic confidence in other domains. This warning represents a genuine inflection point. The technology of bunker busting has reached a level that challenges fundamental assumptions about defensive architecture. Iran built an entire strategic doctrine around the idea that burial equals safety. That equation has changed. How Iran adapts to this new reality will determine whether this warning becomes a catalyst for strategic adjustment or a prelude to military confrontation. If this analysis helped you understand why a weapons system most people have never heard of is changing the strategic landscape of the Middle East, subscribe and turn on notifications. We are covering the second-order effects of this development next, including how Gulf states are quietly repositioning their security relationships based on Iran's newfound vulnerability. The geopolitical chess game is accelerating, and we are tracking every move in real time.